Welcome to Unshackled Building Bridges Podcast. Our mission is to amplify voices of transformation, people who once lived shackled by the streets, the system, or their past, and are now building bridges towards hope, leadership, and purpose. We also amplify the voices of those who stand with us in the fight for freedom, justice, and restoration of those who was once bounded by these chains. We have Max Cerda today with us, a man whose story embodies redemption and resilience. Incarcerated at the early age of 16 and paroled at the age of 35, Max went on to serve on the Illinois Prison Review Board after being nominated by Governor Pritzker's office and Governor receiving a phone call from them. And now he's a respected community leader and advocate. And through the new Latino Reentry Reintegration Services, he will continue his work to empower others coming home, proving that transformation is possible no matter where you start. We're also joined by Carlos Vega, a gang intervention specialist at Built Incorporation, Chicago, and he's the co-founder of the Prison Action Committee. After spending himself 14 years at the Stateville Correctional Center, Carlos turned his life around. He studied criminal law at Lewis University and has now dedicated himself to reaching youth before the system does. His lived experience brings truth, courage, and credibility to the work he does every day. And in this special episode, our host, Ronnie Carrasquillo, will sit down with Max and Carlos for an honest conversation about how it all started from the beginning, up in the Stateville Penitentiary, up against all odds, because it was unheard for people and folks to come together in any kind of event, cultural event, or even just to talk. The proof of their dedication and community involvement is the real meaning of being unshackled, because they went against all odds and they made unity. Together, they reflect on what it takes to rebuild trust, create opportunity, and lead with purpose after surviving some of the hardest parts of their life. Your name gets taunted. Everything happens. So this is Unshackled Building Bridges, where transformation speaks volume. I don't want to talk about their story. They're going to speak for themselves. So before we get into our conversation, let us give honor where honor is due.
Welcome to another episode of Unshackled Building Bridges. I have two brothers here that we're going to explain and express how a network of people got together through many obstacles and survived a 45-year span at least of cultural programming. And I have Max Cerda with me on the right and Carlos Vega with me in the middle. And I'm going to let Max explain what this artwork is, where it started from, and then we'll talk to Carlos Vega, who is initially between me and him, or him and I, however you want to say it, sat down in a workshop in the Stateville prison and started against all odds, coming from different street gang life, that we broke that barrier and sat down and started talking about how we can help our culture. And this is the end product, but we're going to walk you through how it went stage by stage. So, Max, you can go ahead.
Thank you for having us and giving this time and this platform to share our legacy and what we're currently doing and what we hope to keep on doing. Behind me is this big mural that our brother Jason Maldonado done for, at that time we were called the Hispanic Culture Change Coalition. This is an organization that Ronnie, Carlos, and other brothers, put together in Stateville in the early 80s. At first, I wasn't receptive to it because I was still a broken and lost young brother, man. But I'm glad that they talked me into understanding what Latino unity really was about. So 20-something years later, some of us get paroled. And then we do a May March, the first May March that Emma Lozano did, and because the Minutemen were threatening her, so we became her security. Yeah. After that, we were all looking at each other and say, hey man, let's bring back the LCEC, the Latino Culture Change Coalition. So then in 2006, we incorporated, we filed a 501c3. We had an office down here out of division in Washington. We had to dissolve, we ended up dissolving the LCEC like in 2014 because of the political and social climate at that time wasn't conducive for these kind of programs from brothers like us as it is today. So when we dissolved the LCEC, after we incorporated, when we dissolved in 2014, I stood in the social field. I stood with doing anti-violence program. I worked with Aspira, Ceasefire, Build, still in the community trying to help our brothers and sisters out. In March of 2021, Governor Pritzker appointed me to the Illinois Prisoner Review Board, and the first returning citizen in the United States to ever sat on the Prisoner Review Board. In March of 2022, he was forced to remove me. But before he did, we have formed this collaborative. I have brought four Latino-led agencies from the South Side and 4 Latino-led organizations from the North Side. In the South Side, it was Enlace, Healthy Hoods, Central State SERS, and Envision. In the North Side was the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, one of the offices in which we're in now, was also Build and Rincon Family Services. And the reason unapologetically I used the word Latino was because it was hard for us to find funding, and I have learned that when we had incorporated the LCEC years before that, the financial struggles that we had of finding stability and sustainability to these programs. So I used the word Latino to entice our Latino politicians to take heed of what we are, who we are, and these historical organizations that have been out for many years in the city of Chicago that has historically hired returning citizens and people that have been just as impact. So we formed the Illinois Latino Reentry Community Collaborative, which was in June of 2022. A few months down the road, we get awarded close to $4 million. It was federal funding, ARPA funds, which that funding ends, in fact, in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks, in December of next month. With this program, with the LRCC and the money that we got with the North Side and the South Side region together, we gave, honestly, well over 100 participants up to $5,000 of rental assistance. We right now currently have individuals doing CDL training classes. About 4 or 5 of our participants have gotten their CDL through our funding and support. And one of my case managers here, his name is Nick Colon, which is an exoneree. We're now, because I met Nick and I met the Innocence Project and all these beautiful other organizations, now we're intentional in our incorporation to work with exonerees as well. But because we knew that this program and the funding was going to end, because it was federal funding and federal administration in Washington was going to end all these programs, we filed a 501c3 under the Latino Reentry Integration Services, Inc. The same program model is the lineage that started from back in the chapel of Stateville in the early 80s. So now we're incorporated, we have a 501c3 rather, we're fully registered with SAM.gov, we have a website, bank account. All we're doing now is looking for funding. But this is the legacy that these brothers, man, and a few other brothers that are not here, like a brother Don Taylor, may rest in peace, that was from the Mau Mau, and Louis Rosa and other brothers. This is part of their legacy that they helped set, because once I was in, I was all in, and this is what did it for me.
So what I would like to do is take us back. That's what's happening now, what you just mentioned, a lot of what's happening now. In the era that we grew up, first of all, I'd like to explain why we started Unshackled Building Bridges. That my friend Gilbert, who's does the filming and does the editing, does everything about this program, we sat down one day and said, what do we have in common? And we had in common that we were shackled up to vices from our community that taught us bad things. And what do we have now? So what do we have in common? We broke that shackling, became unshackled. So then we started building. How did we build? And I would express to him, we started with a Hispanic Cultures Change Committee, but it even started before that. It actually started with me and Carlos, that we came from, we all went to the prison, most of us, for street gang life of being enemies to each other. So normally by Chicago's rules, we're supposed to be enemies. But we sat down one day, say, hey, that's enough of that. Let's sit down. So we sat down to create what they call a workshop. It was called a workshop. So we came with the idea we can sit down. As far as the people in the system that were with us, they wanted to beat us, they wanted to harm us and cause us harm. And when these brothers started these committees, they actually, some of them did get physical violence upon them about this, us creating a unity thing, even contemplating doing such a thing. So we worked against a lot of bad odds. And I'm gonna let Carlos explain, because he worked in a place that was called the Law Library in Stateville. And I was trying to get a job in there. I got a job in there eventually, but he was there already, so he was programming already with African American committees. So when I got in there, he started working with me, grooming and bringing that idea to bring it forward. So he actually developed the first and did the recruiting, I would say, of the first. We had to, you could say, fish the population to go in there and find out who was willing to step forward and what they were getting into. And that's where this brother took off. So I'll let him explain that. But that was one of the first emblems they made, and then it developed into this. After, like Max said, when he was released from the incarceral world, and him and another brother, Jose Pizarro, took it and 501c3 the program in society. As far as in the system, Carlos had no idea, I had no idea at that time that the Hispanic Cultures Change Committee ended up in 95% of the institutions in the state, that every year and every summer they would call upon us to cook cultural foods and maintain peace in that environment. And that's what came out of us sitting in that room to do that. And this is the first time, just letting you know, first time I've seen him since 1982, probably, since that time, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna let him explain what he remembers of this timing.
Yeah, so, thank you, Ronnie, for inviting me, to this program. And as you were saying, man, we went through a lot of struggles, as we were talking in Stateville about, how do we develop Latino programs, right? Because in the law library and the general library, they didn't have any materials that dealt with Spanish, reading, Spanish materials, or none of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, as you remember, Margaret Burroughs used to come all the time to the library in Stateville and do the African American Kwanzaa thing, right? So I'm in the library, I'm like, man, we need a Latino thing up in here too, and I started talking to the guys that were running the library. At that time was Burroughs Oaks, if you remember. It was
Burroughs Library System.
Yeah, and that's when you and I started talking about unity, right? Talking about bringing people together. And so through the classes that we first had, which were workshops, were cultural classes, right? We're teaching each other about our histories, right? African American, Latino, about our similarities in the struggle, right? For peace, and our struggles, dealing with society and the racism and all that stuff. So, and the whole idea was that if we knew each other, right, especially African American Latinos, if we knew each other, who we were and our similarities and our histories, that we would become united, right? And so, I got the idea. I said, man, you know what? I'm gonna get 5 people, and we're gonna sit down. We're gonna create a committee. So I went hunting, in the institution, and I got 5 folks and 5 people. I expressed the idea of what we're gonna do. We're gonna do cultural stuff. We're gonna do teaching. We're gonna do cultural classes and teach. Puerto Rican, Mexican, Cuban, Colombian history, African American history. And then one of the brothers that Max mentioned, Don T, he was an integral part of this too as well, right? Because he was going to do the African American Culture Exchange Committee in Stateville. And a lot of that, we went, we asked a lot of people for their assistance to back us up. We had a lot of resistance, believe me, a lot of resistance. A lot of people didn't want to see this get off, right? And literally our lives were in danger, at stake, you know what I mean?
So just to mention real fast, not to cut you off, they keep saying Don T. This person's name was Don Taylor, and he didn't make it home from the institutions. He died in the institutions. But his whole time was teaching younger brothers how to focus on the front door, how to focus on building your life better in a unit to become more powerful, to ask for things. Because at that time, the system was changing from the indeterminate sentence prisoners that I believe you were and I was, and that it was turning into the Class X. And so what were we going to do about it as living in that kind of incarceral world? So we used to sit down. This is where this all started from. As the laws changed and encroached upon us to keep us longer periods of time and to do more things to us, we sat down and said, hey, it's more important that we become brothers than this keep happening to us, that we're going to spend our life in here. And that's what was the issue.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing, and it worked, you know what I mean? Because as we sat down, bro, you know what I mean, and worked together on projects in Stateville, because we put on programs. We brought in a salsa band that was from Clemente, right? Was from Clemente High School, and we brought in Latino foods, things that never have been done in Stateville, you know what I mean? And we were doing monumental things. We did plays. We did a skit from Short Eyes, which was a Puerto Rican. Remember that? That was crazy. But
well, we did what happened was at that time. If I could interrupt you real fast, they did a study in Clemente High School at that time, and it was 5 things that were barriers of Latinos making it in society. One was street gangs, one was pregnancy, one was language barrier, one was needing the money. I don't remember the whole thing, but that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, because we did a survey and we passed them out to the guys in the joint to see what were their cause for them dropping out of high school. Because remember, in the high school in the 90s, man, in Clemente, they was dropping out. That's where we got the idea from. You know?
And in actuality, I believe, if I'm correct, Operation Push at the time was going to fund us. They were funding us for the cameras and the equipment to do the filming of ourselves. So we had a unity thing going about
we did.
Changing our lives. We haven't stopped since then. This thing's been going on 40 years. So
we did, bro.
If you're complete with that, I just want to know we know we went through that and walked through. We could be here all night to inch by inch who did what.
Right.
But I like to go on and ask Max, and if you feel like you want to answer these questions with him, then I want to start focusing on Max. And my first question to him is because that's what this Unshackled Building Bridges is for. Most of us are incarceral impacted people, and the struggles of coming out from underneath that. And we just spoke a couple minutes ago, me and Carlos, that seems like it never gets loose. You don't get loose from it. It holds on to you for getting jobs and just all kind of different obstacles. It stays there. So we're giving, this podcast is having people explain their stories and tell their stories. So my first question I would ask Max, what are some of the negative, because we come from the same environment, and I have my take on it, he has his, and Carlos will have his. So it says, what were some of the negative beliefs that the community and society instilled in your life, to make you who you are? And I'll say mine, I don't know what yours would be. They instilled in me to hate authority, to don't trust authority. They instilled in me to don't trust anybody. They instilled in me racial discord. And that's why you see in the 60s, all of us that came up, all the street gangs in Chicago that came up had an ethnic forename to it. Black this, Latin this, Spanish this, and that's what was at that time. And then the worst part of it was the gang philosophy. And that's what my community instilled in me at a young age. So what was your side of the point of view? What do you see?
To me, it was more of a belief. It was more than a belief. It was a reality for me. The fact, what you hit on, the police back then were totally different than what they are today, or maybe they just learned how to get away with it more. Yeah. But back then, it was blunt. So we definitely, my reality and my lived experience as a young man, as a young kid, was not to trust the police or authority, for that matter. And in education, I've never enrolled in high school in my life. When I got incarcerated at the age of 16, I was illiterate. The last school I attended was Montefiore. That was a reformatory school back in the day. And that school was just a prelude to prison life, Artie home, because there was nothing but gangbanging going on in there.
So that's where it started. Montefiore,
man. Token and dime. And back then, that's when corporate punishment was still cool. We had a principal Johnson or Brown. He was a big Army guy. And whenever you fight, you got to go to his office and roll the dices. And whatever you hit, that's how many whacks on your butt you're getting.
Wow.
And I remember me, this one kid got into a fight. He went first. And man, he was raising him every time he whacked him. When it was my turn, I was like a deer. I was gone. But the beliefs, my lived experience, man.
The negative beliefs.
My negative beliefs, man, and encounters in life is what conditioned my thinking, man, as a young kid. And it was just against authority, man, that we was in this on ourselves. They didn't care about us. It was who we are. It was an enclave. We became an enclave. We would become a subculture. We felt that we was outcast. And for some reason or another, we honestly believed it.
Yeah. In my neighborhood that I came from, which is close to yours, they actually would surround the school and say, you couldn't come here as a Latino, you couldn't come here, you're Puerto Rican. And they would even in his environment have by the Chopin, Kill a Spick Day, and all these different emblems on the wall, and you'd go to school, 10 years old, hey, what do you mean? Hold up, did that mean they're gonna get me?
Exactly.
So that's what it was. So you can go ahead because you come from the same, just a little bit down the street from us, but the same thing.
And for me, the police made me a gang member. You know what I mean? Because they kept picking me up and throwing me in different neighborhoods and yelling out shit. You know what I mean? I got to the point where, I got fed up, man, with the police, and you know what I'm saying? But, that's how I felt, back then, because, the law enforcement was instrumental in creating the problems in our hood. You know what I'm saying?
It was.
And creating that division, you know what I mean? And dropping motherfuckers, I'll put them over there and say, hey, he's a king, or he's this, he's that, right? And you had to run for your life,
we could look at, now that I'm older and I'm not on either side of it, but we could look at it as that. But I'm in the ministry now, and I look at it as the Bible says that tribulations will come your way. So I minister to people and say that now as an adult, when things come my way, I know how to better deal with it. When we were younger and we didn't go to school and we hanged in the alleys and we hanged in the street, I thought you annihilate what's in front of you, just smash it.
Yeah, exactly.
So once we're wounded, and once you're wounded, and once you get into that, it's hard to unlock. And they know to this day that juveniles or younger minors' brain don't develop till 20, 25 years old. Exactly. I must have been one of them real late guys. You know what I mean? It didn't develop because I was locked in on that. And it sent me to prison with a 600-year sentence where we all landed.
And I just want to add that, and growing up on Armitage and Racine, I gravitated toward the young lords. You know what I'm saying? And with Chacha and them, when I was a kid, they used to feed us. You know what I mean? So that's where I got my radical, ideology from. You know what I mean? And then later, when he was in the county jail, I ran into him. And then when coming to Stateville and meeting with Louis Rosa and them, we started back talking about the issues in our community and how do we resolve those issues.
And when I was 10 years old, that was about that era. So it was about storefronts all through the neighborhood, taking us in after school and then feeding us and doing those kind of things. And that was kind of, to the system that existed, that was kind of a no-no. They didn't like that. So that was the clash, that was back in that era. So it's a time past, but sometimes you see what's going on right now, you're like, wow, is this thing going back around a full cycle? So I want to ask another thing right now is that, once you found out those ideologies that we walked into, you could say, and that we started exercising, once you realized they were wrong and you took the wrong route, or I realized that, I wouldn't say you would or you would answer for yourself, but how hard was it to let go and create a new mindset? Because when as a kid, you have a reputation, you're known as this, and you think that that's where you're at. So when all of a sudden you have to flip that off, and all of a sudden that's not my name no more. Don't call me that no more. I'm not about that no more. And then, you're a sucker now, or you got to go through that there. So that's my question. Once you found out that philosophy to be wrong, what you were walking, how hard was it to let go?
For me, I always used to say when I was going on to my journey of development, man, of cultural awareness and unity, I always used to think that it was too late for us to make peace. I thought there was too much blood in everybody's hands, But what did it for me after a while, after I learned how to read, you know, I did 5.5 years in SEG, and this is where I learned how to read, I learned how to write, I learned how to think, I learned how to cry, and become and feel human, right? That's where I found my humanity was in SEG. It sounds ironic, but that was my experience. I found my humanity in SEG. And then we had brothers like Carlos, yourself. You were like a mentor to me, Ronnie. You know that, man. You know that book. Remember, As the Man Thinketh It. I still remember the poem and all that. And but what did it for me was culture, man. And I came up with a saying that everybody started saying that cultura cura, culture heals, and it was culture that did it for me. And changing that prospect for me was I was conflicted, because I still felt at that time, I'm with this. I'm still about the nation. I'm still about this here. But you Latino, and this is bigger than Latinos, man. I mean, Latino is bigger than this. But through the education and the mentoring that I got from you, from Charlie, from Luis Rosa, they always used to tell me, this brother, man, jump on the committee. I said, man, bro, you got too many of them brothers over there with you over there. I don't want to be with them dudes like that there. But I'm glad that I took that realization. But once I committed to my Latinismo, then everything else was just like smooth. So everything became second nature for me. I knew what to do, even though I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I know what I needed to do. And one thing was to educate myself. The other thing was to humble myself. The other thing is to forgive myself and forgive others. That was the hard part, man. That was the hardest. But then when I was able to embrace that process, here we are today, man.
Yeah.
So my next question, like this one can go for a little while. And we are filming in the Humboldt Park area, so you might hear different kind of noises that you normally won't hear. You know, this is what we grew up with. So that's what you go. So it says my next question, were there opposers who tried to stand in your way and you wanted to grow in new directions? You know, if so, how did you deal with them? You know,
man, listen, when you guys were I'm listening to you brothers, man, when y'all started before we jumped on board with you guys. I remember when the so-called leadership on all these fractions said, okay, we're going to meet and we're going to talk about this. And we all went to the chapel. There were like 30 of us on either side.
I remember.
Nobody sat down.
Yeah.
Not because nobody wanted to sit down, because we was all strapped.
Yeah.
We was there. We didn't know what was going to happen, because in the late 70s, early 80s, well, I got locked up in 79. At that time, cocaine wasn't a thing for us. Cocaine was a white man high, and heroin was for the brothers coming from Nam. We had weed and that other stuff. And it was, you know, it wasn't about that we were locked up for drugs and all that. Everybody there was there for, unfortunately, for killing each other, man. We was there for murder, man. Unfortunately, killing our own people, our own genocide, man. And so nobody trusted nobody. So when we had that first meeting, nobody sat down, because everybody was standing like damn robots and shit, because we was all strapped, had our book.
The knives were too big.
Our book vests and shit.
But after that meeting, man, it's when the light turned out for me. Because I didn't get hit the next day, because we was on that little chopping block, because now we don't talk to the enemy, because I was telling you that before. And now that I bought into it, now they're telling me that. And the people that were telling me that could have made situations a little worse, right?
Definitely.
But this is what life is about. When you find you believe in something and you have that passion at all costs, you go for it, man. You stand strong, whether you stand alone. Sometimes standing alone is standing strong, man. And there was times where we felt alone, because people didn't want to hear that. But I think that after the programs and what came out of it, the camaraderie, especially when we did the dinner, remember when we got all that food, all that feast, and we was cooking, and I ended up going to SEG that night. I didn't get a chance to taste none of that. But I think that what did it for a lot of the older brothers, man, that were, you know, in position, I guess, to say, all right, let's let this see where it takes us. But it took a while, man. I mean, most people would have walked away. Brothers were telling me, dude, man, you're gonna get hit, fall back from that. I couldn't do it, man.
You know, unbeknownst to me at that time, because I wouldn't call myself at that time a Christian, but the acts that we were doing were biblical acts, which is peacemakers. We were warriors by social neighborhoods and culture. That's what was in the neighborhood. Go get them, and all the time. So as we landed in that bad setting, then once we, like you said, the light bulb goes off and you become awakened. Same thing. I'm in segregation and like looking at this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. This can't be like this.
Right.
You know, and you're suffering. The meal's not coming, or you're being shortchanged. You can't do nothing about it. You're locked in. You can't shower.
Right.
So after all these different things, you're like, you got to get right. I gotta use my energy a different way. So we became peacemakers, not announced Christians against all odds. You know, because I know that. You know, myself, were verbally assaulted, ratted on, talked about, trying to defy your reputation. This guy's, you know, with them too many times, or, you know, with the opposing party and all that stuff like that. But we prevailed, you know. So it's a blessing to be even sit here to do this and see how far you kept carrying it. You know, I was there wherever you were in your life, as we just seen each other again today. But now that I am a Christian, I would announce, I want to say 3 things that stand out to me as I sat here and was thinking about what I want to talk to Max and Carlos about in this thing. And it's a blessing. I didn't know he was coming until later in today. You know, he said, I'm going to bring Carlos Vega. I said, yeah, well, he's the one started it, the whole thing in reality. That's the first person. He drew me in there. So, you know, let's go. We could do. And we were behind what them things were called, the slide things. Not curtains, but they're like them boards in the library. We had to slide them boards. Nobody know we back there having meetings, you know, 2 opposing parties. But we prevailed. So the Bible tells you in one part, it's a blessings when you do the right thing. It says we are not the tail but the head. We never been behind. We always been the aggressor. When we went to the authorities and said, you're going to spend $1,000 or $2,000, and you're going to send for plátanos, and you're going to send for tamarindo, and you're going to send for bustelo, and you're going to send for aceite. You're going to bring that stuff here, and we're going to do it in here. And they just look, and we're going to keep the peace. And when they seen us pull it off, when you guys going to do another? Is everything okay? You need to do another. So then we did sporting events, and we played baseball against each other, football against each other. We played handball together, where 2 years basketball. So 2 years before that, it was a no-no to say hi or say what's up to each other. And it reached into that culture, and then into the African, they call African black culture. To me, I was in the prison system. So it says, we're not the head, we're not the tail, but we're the head. Then it says, we will be blessed going out in the field and blessed coming in. And we've been blessed. Though we were in that setting, we were blessed. We weren't hurting for nothing. We were blessed. We didn't want to be there, but man, we laugh every day. We just, just signifying every day. And it was bad being away from the family, but we didn't let it destroy our minds. It did destroy people's minds. And the third one is our coast, our territory will be enlarged. And I say that because there's a prayer in the Bible called the Jabez prayer, and it says about enlarging the coast and enlarging the territory. And matter of fact, I learned it a lot from Hadenbach, one of the Hadenbach brothers, Keith, was telling me that. Learn about that Jabez prayer, and it's praying over that coast and that territory. And that brought me to the mindset that he's been highly blessed, what Max did. He came home and started 501c3. Did you fathom that when we did that? I didn't. That it was going to come home and do that? No. Did you fathom that it was going to be in every institution across the state, and that the administrators would come to you and say, would you do this program? That you would never believe it to happen. The other part is he started a secondary, was the coalition. He just finished the Illinois Latino Reentry Collaborative. So he had a secondary program successful, got him $4 million. Then they went and placed this guy on the prison review board that's going to decide my fate to come home or not. You know what I'm saying? So your coast has been enlarged. So though you don't announce scripture, I'm the Christian. I'll cover you with that Christianity. So we bless that way.
Brother. I can embrace that.
You know what I mean?
And one thing, if I can
Second that.
you can second that, my brother.
There we go.
Well, one thing I also want to say, at least what it was for me, I always at first used to say, hey man, it was the Latinismo. That was our first commonality. But at least for me, because of the person I was, For me, the first commonality that we needed to work together with these brothers was the fact that we was looking down the barrel of the same damn gun. That gun tower gonna gun you down like he done me, like he would do. You know, shoot you like he shoot me. And we lost brothers like that, brother. We lost brothers like we went through that. And that was, for me, the first commonality of the necessity for us to come together, man. Because we were already there for killing each other. So the thought was, are we going to keep on killing each other? Or we're going to learn from this, man, and grow from this. And thanks to brothers like you guys, man, especially for young brothers like me that was coming to the system, helped me change that thought process, man, helped me change that mindset. And then it was all about Latinismo. That was then the only commonality that was real for me. And a couple days, last night, I sent like 20 plus individuals an email, and we're talking about our experience in prison. And I just want to take this 2 minutes to read this, just a paragraph of this email that I sent that's in reference to what Brother Ronnie just said of us when we was in prison. I go, a lot of us here on this email have done some time together in the system. We've learned to not just survive, but to thrive as men/women and as Latinos/Latinas. In prison, I learned and experienced the value of unity and Latinismo among our brothers. For me, it was culture and love for our people that transformed my life and gave my life purpose. For those of us that were there, you can testify to the unity and power that existed among Latinos throughout the prison system. No matter what barrio or banner we came under or came from, we found strength and identity in our solidarity. We were able to bring cultural and educational programs behind the wall. We created an atmosphere of peace, respect, and accountability among our urban tribes that the last prison riot among brothers was in the early 80s. We made the administration respect our presence and culture. We came together.
Amen. Amen. So let me go to the next question so we don't be all night. So I'd like to capture some of your work, your networking, your creations, your programs that were important to you, which you put the work in to develop. So what else? I know it started there, went to this one, and then I would say in closing, it's an all-together program, because I know the Hispanic Culture Change Committee, Taking It Home, Latin Reentry Coalition, and LASE also, so you got a listing of networks you work with, Southside and Humboldt Park area, so a full round circle of that. And then to bring up the point of, what's your latest development? What are you bringing about now?
Right. I'm proud and honored to say that we've participated and was part of many programs that I know have helped a lot of brothers and sisters in the struggle of reentry, reintegration since I've been out to join and we were doing the LCEC. I was Jose Pizarro, my brother. He was a director for the LCEC when we incorporated. I was co-executive. And we had got our license to do anger management evaluations and anger management classes. And even when I used to conduct our classes, in the depths of my mind, I will give myself a moment to really rejoice in this moment. I said, I never would have thought that when I was in SEG, doing 5.5 years, throwing stuff at police, that I would be doing this, So that opportunity that started in Stateville, man, allowed us to do multiple things out here in the community, in the free world for our brothers and sisters, man, whether through reentry or community violence. I advocated it when we had the LCEC. I went to St. Charles. I sat on prisoner review board in behalf of some of our young brothers that were coming out, participants, stuff that I never would have imagined. Like you guys said, would you just say, would you have ever fathomed the fact that we'd be out here today still pushing this? So I felt the same way. I mean, in every moment and the first time I came to Stateville, I just walking through that front door, just the smell of that place, it was just nostalgic, and not just in a bad way, because like Ronnie said, we had some good times in there, bro. We had brothers that died in there, bro. We took, Defunto Dave. Remember Defunto Dave when he died from leukemia? So it was bittersweet. But again, I've allowed myself the moment to absorb what the trajectory of my life, where it had brought us to, and where I'm steady going. So, we accomplished a lot. We helped a lot of people out, man, that otherwise probably wouldn't have got help, right? Mm-hmm. And then this opportunity with the Prisoner Review Board. I learned a long time ago, after I learned to read, I read this one book that says that it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Wow. And I was prepared. For that Prisoner Review Board, I never had no ambition. I didn't even know what the Prisoner Review Board. I was under the DULA. I was under day for day. Yeah. I didn't have. When I thought of the parole board, I thought of Shawshank Redemption. That type of shit scenario rather. And but to be able to have been, go through that process and be part of that for that year, it only again allowed me to know that the trajectory of my life, I had did something right, man. That I finally got it. I'm finally doing something right, and was able to impact people's lives, and my remorse, will always be my healing, man. And so every time we're able to do, help somebody. When I was with Ceasefire, with Aspida, with Bill, that we were doing conflict mediation and bringing peace, talking to our youngs, kids that weren't even born when we was in prison, but I knew their grandfathers, I knew their uncles, or they knew one of you guys or something to that effect. It only just further just let me know how well connected we all are, that all we need is an opportunity to grow, man. To grow and think like Latinos and love our people, man, and have these opportunities open for our people, man. Bust some doors down, man.
So it's good to see you guys, good to see you after all these years. I like to say that I wasn't looking for a different answer, but I'm going to say it for Max, that he's started a program. It's in the making, and we'll have him back again to express that program. It's called Latin Reentry Reintegration Services. So that's going to be on the forefront soon. It's just an extension of what he just finished doing. And with that, unless you have anything to say, I close with a scripture, but you go ahead and say what you say.
Well, one last thing, I just want to take notice. I'm real proud of our new logo for the LRRS, because you can see that roundhouse. That even looks like one of my windows I used to look out of.
That is your window right there.
So to close this with a prayer, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I just want to say one thing, that I'm proud of Max, and what he's done, and I always tell him that, because he's grown beyond my imagination, bro. And he's accomplished things that I try to accomplish with the Prison Action Committee in the 90s, but couldn't, and I'm proud of that, bro. Straight up.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
It's sad in our time that we seen people that were supposed to be leaders around us, instead of letting the younger brothers' minds be expanded and let them loose, that they suppressed them by the violent culture we lived in. That it was a threat of, so you had to maintain that space, and it was not allowed to step out. We would have been a lot further. That people's minds closed to want that system to stay the way it was, but. Anyway, we broke it anyway. It got broken.
And I want to say thank you, Ronnie, for those. When we first met in Stateville, there was no talking to opposition. There was none of that. And thank you for taking that risk, brother, to do this.
Well, we're alive and well. So this comes to the scripture. It's in Genesis, and it says in there that what man meant for evil, God meant for good. And here we are. So that's the end. Thank you for joining Unshackled Building Bridges. I'll turn it over to my friend Gilbert, who does the editing, and we'll see you another time.
This is Unshackled Building Bridges.
There you go. He had to get it. That's the guy. That's the editor. He'd be all day with that thing. Coming up with a story. When you start following this thing, you'll be like, this dude crazy.
Ronnie seen it all from the inside walls. Gil got a vision that still stands tall. We don't beg for seats. We build our own. Bridge by bridge, we're bringing them home. Chains fall, bridges rise. We walk the dark with open eyes. No second chances, just transformed lives. Unshackled souls.